What's up, friends and foes? Welcome to Let's Get Nerdy. My name is Corey.
I'm Wyatt.
And as you know, we don't get a new Superman movie every single year, only about once every 10 or 20 years. And with that, as excited as we are for the new era of Superman in the DC universe, we figured we wanted to celebrate by looking back at all of the previous theatrical releases of Superman and kind of going through them one by one. We just recorded for Superman 1, and now we are recording today Superman 2, the theatrical cut, not what is known as the Richard Donner cut, Wyatt, because to start, this has a different director. So I mentioned in the last video that Richard Donner initially tried to create like a 3-hour like super epic thing, and the studio eventually was like it just was taking too long and was spending too much money, and they said that like you're spending too much money, and he goes, okay, we'll split it into 2 movies, like we'll just do we'll film 2 movies at once then, and pretty much the second movie was filmed, like 70% of the second movie was filmed when the studio was like, no dude, you're taking too long and you're going way over budget. Shit. And because the first Superman, we didn't get into this, the budget was $70 million, which at the time was the most expensive movie ever filmed.
Really?
Yes. Which is funny because like 70 million now is like, oh, that's such a cute budget.
Cute. Yeah.
And so his response to being told he was over budget was, I was never given a budget. And so they were like, well, you were given walking papers. Get the fuck out.
Oh my God.
Yes. And so there is 2 different cuts of it. That's right. 10 years before or 15 years before there was ever a Snyder cut, there was a Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, which we'll kind of get into what was a Donner filming. Which was a Donner decision and a Richard Lester decision, who took over, was somebody who was friends with Richard Donner, and has been described as, in his additions and handling of the movie, was not, and this is the exact quote I found, was not sympathetic to Richard Donner's vision, because where Richard Donner wanted to make this giant epic, as we've discussed, Lester wanted to make something a little bit more sillier and campier and a little bit more fun. Before this movie, Richard Lester had worked on 3 Musketeers and 4 Musketeers. So this is the second time he's coming in halfway through a franchise.
Interesting.
So the joke there is that 3 Musketeers, I'm implying that the 3 Musketeers was the 3rd movie in the franchise. I don't know if that was clear or not. But with that, we are now covering Superman 2, the Richard Lester version. Whether that's controversial or not, I apologize. Wyatt, do you have any history with this movie?
No.
No.
I had kind of like the last one. I had seen it when I was a little kid, but I barely remembered bits and pieces of it. I probably remember more of clips I have seen online rather than at my actual viewing of the movie when I was little. So basically, no. Unfortunately.
So my feelings are very mirrored of the last one, where I really liked the last one. This one is the one I loved. This was probably my favorite when I was a kid, because this was the one that I think I would watch more often, because this is the one where he fought somebody.
Yeah.
The first one, he didn't throw a single punch, and when you're an 8-year-old in the 2000s, all you want to see is your main guy throw a punch.
Oh yeah.
So I vastly preferred this one, and I guess I might still, which we'll get into that. So we open the film with the re-showing of Zod and his cronies Ursa and Non being sentenced again to the negative zone. This time, sans Jor-El, despite Zod still promising to make Jor and his heir Neil. This movie does not feature Marlon Brando. It's because Marlon Brando did not want them to use his likeness again. I guess he was not happy to be working on the first one.
Really?
Yes. In fact, Christopher Reeve, in one of my favorite quotes, David Letterman asked him about this, of like, you didn't really like Marlon. He goes, Christopher Reeve's exact Christopher Reeves apostrophe S. His exact quote was, "I do not worship at the altar that is Marlon Brando," which I think what I love about that is that shows how much of a of like an actor Christopher Reeve is, because that's such a theatrical way of saying you don't like a guy. Of like, I don't worship at the altar of him.
Yeah.
It's such a dramatic way of just being like, yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
And it's just one of my favorite, like, genuinely. I saw that clip probably for the first time like 5 or 10 years ago, and it's something I think about every once a week. I think about that, of like, if I think of not liking somebody, my brain says I don't worship at the altar of this person. Just because it's such a like grandiose, like, what does that even mean? But
I'm gonna start borrowing that though.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, so as we get the opening, we then get the opening credits, which serves as a recap of the first with the Star Wars theme playing over the top of the footage. This time, the film is officially directed by Richard Lester due to disputes between Donner's and the studio. Which, fun fact, it's very dependent on the person in the cast how they feel about the Richard Lester version. I'll kind of get more into that. The main story kicks off with Clark bumbling into the Daily Planet with everyone hating on our main man from Kansas. Clark learns from Perry White that the Eiffel Tower has been attacked by terrorists, and of course one Lois Lane is on the scene in the middle of all of it. Clark quickly rushes out to... Am I boring? No, I'm joking. Rushes out of the building quickly, shedding his disguise, and right off the bat we get Big Blue instead of waiting fucking an hour. Superman, Lois arriving to Paris, or Paris, as they might say. I wouldn't, but I would say Paris. Manages to sneak onto the Eiffel Tower to investigate the terrorists that sound like the French guards from Monty Python's The Holy Grail. You know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
There's like a scene in the Monty Python the Holy Grail where like they run into a French castle, and he goes, "I spit on you," and that's what I think.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The whole time, I don't know if this is offensive of me to be saying this, but the whole time that's what I was picturing. And then we get the French SWAT team, which I think they have a specific name, but I don't know it. But we get do you know what the French SWAT team name is?
No.
SWAT.
Oh my god.
Oh, we have fun here. As the French SWAT team begins to plan explosives, the SWAT team sets off the explosives, causing the elevator and Lois along with it to fall down the shaft before Superman saves the day and letting Lois off before throwing the elevator and the bomb into space, unknowingly releasing Zod and his cronies from the negative zone. One thing I want to shout out about the scene, Lois Lane doing a trick like 30 years before Tom Cruise did it in Mission Impossible Fallout.
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
And you know who he was doing it under? Henry Cavill. Superman!
Yeah.
Fuck, it's Superman's everywhere is what we're trying to say here. What did you think of this opening?
It was great. It was pretty fun. It's cool to be in Paris. I want to go to Paris. Not on an elevator on the Eiffel Tower. Well, the bottom side of the elevator, actually. That would be...
I kind of want to now, so I can be like, damn, this is like Superman 2.
Nope, I'm good. You can have fun with that. No, yeah, the guard in which he just let Lois pass, he was distracted by a book. He was not very good at his job.
No.
Because he very quickly was like, let me just have a sit down and look at this book and try to figure out how to translate for you.
Yeah.
It just completely lost track of her.
Yeah.
Within about 3 seconds.
Yeah.
When there's a terrorist situation going on. But no, the intro was fun. It's pretty fast paced and it kind of draws you in well, I think, because there is a bit of there's a bit of like a drawn out intro between like another very long opening crawl and then the kind of retelling of the first movie and stuff.
Yeah. Which I like the opening crawl on the first movie. The recap I could have done without.
Yeah.
But
it's so long.
Yeah, but what occurred to me though is this came out in like I think 80 or 81. So people it had been like 2 or 3 years since people had seen the first one. So they probably needed the recap.
Yeah.
But me having watched these back to back, I was like, all right, I know what fucking happened.
Yeah. Well, and they don't. I mean, they take their sweet ass time with it too. So.
Yeah.
But that that's okay, because then we get that pretty fun, fast-paced scene on the Eiffel Tower, and then we're off in space, which is always cool to be in space. Kind of silly that the nuclear or the hydrogen bomb or whatever the fuck it was, that's what broke the Phantom Zone.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because it seems like there's lots of nuclear stuff going on in space. Not necessarily nuclear bombs,
Yeah.
but like solar. God
Yeah.
damn it! Not
Solar flares.
Solar flares. That's
Yeah.
the word. That kind of stuff and gases and who knows what. So if that's all it took, like, was some explosion to break the Phantom Zone, kind of silly.
Well, that's
But-
that's one of those things. Like, that's very much, I think, the comic book thing of this era. Like the idea of like the Fantastic Four getting their powers from cosmic rays.
Yeah.
Cosmic rays are everywhere. Everything is a cosmic ray.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that's just the era of like, this is the era of writers being like, this sounds sciencey. Wow.
And it's like space is so kind of like new,
Yeah.
and it's so like mysterious and grandiose. So it's like anything in space
Yeah.
has to be over the top.
Yeah. Stanley Kubrick had only put that movie out in what, 68 at this point?
I have no idea.
I was talking about filming because they, the conspiracy theory is Stanley Kubrick filmed the moon landing. Yeah.
You're right.
I'm batting 100 with you today. Why?
You really are, man. We are not synced up today.
Anyway, so we get Clark and Lois back in the Daily Planet as they are squeezing the juice out of some oranges. As Lois suggests, Clark needs to be more aggressive before asking Clark, "What are friends for?" What did he think of this scene? I don't know.
I can't tell you how much I want to be in the Daily Planet. I almost said Daily Bugle again. The Daily Planet, squeezing orange juice, giving friendship advice.
Yes.
Just sounds like the time of my life. To go from being under an elevator, falling off the Eiffel Tower, to setting off hydrogen bombs in space, and now
And telling Clark Kent to his face that he sucks.
that he sucks whilst squeezing orange juice.
And so,
Sounds like a blast.
absolutely. Which next, next we get the return of Gene Hackman and Ned Beatty return as Lex and Otis in prison, pulling laundry duty as Lex laments his failure while teasing his next plan to foil Superman. This is followed by a scene of a space mission that I can't tell if it was a... Whoa. Okay, so you might have to remind me what I'm saying here, because my note is
Okay.
I can't tell if this is a very progressive or a poorly aged joke. But regardless, Zod wasn't a fan because he... Oh, I think there's like two dudes that are married. Or like they're suggesting two dudes are married. Does that recall?
No.
Do you... So the scene on the moon where it's like two astronauts...
Yeah.
Did I misinterpret something?
I think so.
Okay.
Or I didn't interpret it properly.
Regardless, Zod and his cronies show up. I use the word cronies in my notes a lot, I've noticed. Regardless of if it was a progressive or poorly aged joke, I don't know what I mean by that. But Zod was not a fan because he, Ursa, and Non showing up to cause problems. To cause problems, which is a nice way of saying they kill a whole crew of astronauts. We do get Ursa ripping off the patch. You start her fascination of stealing insignia from other militaries as she perceives them. And we get a brief cameo by John Ratzenberger. Did you catch that? Do you know who John Ratzenberger
I
is?
have no fucking idea.
Do you know the mailman from Cheers?
Nope.
Okay. He's the... Do you know the guy who's like in every Pixar movie?
No.
How do I say this? Who is he in... I think he's the pig in Toy Story.
Oh.
And,
I know
like,
the voice.
Yeah, that voice that's in every Pixar movie.
Yeah.
That's John Ratzenberger.
Who did he play in this?
He was one of the guys in the Control, in the Control
Oh.
and NASA. He was the one with the mustache.
That
You
doesn't help
genuinely,
me at all.
there's no reason you would be able to pick him out of a lineup if you didn't already know who he was. So
yeah,
don't worry.
yeah. That's
Um,
cool though.
Yes. So then, yeah, we get a cameo from John Ratzenberger before cutting back to Zod and crew, learning that they're growing stronger as they get closer to Earth's yellow sun, and then they decide they got to go to planet Houston. Or Houston, is it? Houston.
Yeah.
Continuing the trend of the overly dramatic pronunciations of things, which I think they also continue to say Krypton.
They do, yeah. It's just Krypton. There is no Krypton. It's Krypton.
And we then quickly cut to the Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon that is Lex and Otis breaking from prison and being rescued by the returning Ms. Tessmacher before Otis's big ass holds the whole balloon down. So Lex kicks the ladder back on him so they escape, followed by Clark and Lois. So, yeah, hold on. Before we get to the Clark and Lois scene, that fucking prison break scene
Dude.
is just... It's a fucking... showing up in a hot air balloon with literally like a rope ladder, and like I think at one point they even just show the silhouette of the like the balloon getting held down by Otis, and Lex just kicking. Dude, I
can't tell you how much I fucking love Lex and his fucking goons, man.
Which is crazy because like Gene Hackman is a serious ass actor.
Yeah.
Like he's been in some crazy shit. And he's literally just like Three Stooges. Like it is a Three Stooges like cartoon happening.
And this is so goofy to say, but like I almost think like they're my favorite characters in these movies.
Oh, they're probably the best part.
They're so fucking funny.
But so then the prison break is followed by Clark and Lois posing as a married couple on their honeymoon, being led by the most obnoxious busboy I've ever seen.
Dude.
What an asshole.
Dude.
And then like demanding a tip.
The way he was chomping that fucking gum.
Dude. If I was
just like, give me the money.
Oh yeah, if I was Clark, I would have flicked him in the forehead. Anyways, then this starts the tease of putting together that I forget what coaxed this, but you get the teases of Lois putting together that Clark can't maybe Superman.
He pulls his glasses.
Oh yeah, he pulls his glasses off and she like does a double take.
Yeah.
Which I do. I enjoyed this, and I enjoy this, but I have some thoughts about the Clark performance. We'll get into in a bit here. This is then intercut with clips of Lex and Ms. Tessmacher tracking down the Fortress of Solitude, still in the hot air balloon, who have I talked about the chemistry that Margot Kidder and Clark Kent share. I think Gene Hackman and I forget who plays her, but Ms. Tessmacher also have chemistry of their own.
Yeah.
Of just bickering the whole fucking time, just absolutely hilarious. It continues the habit of saying Krypton wrong. So because I think Gene Hackman kept saying Krypton. Or so, they get it, yeah. Anyways,
well, they even say it in the hologram things.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
The holograms are saying Krypton, and Lex Luthor uncovers Laura's Clark's Kryptonian mother, warning of General Zod's potential arrival. Lex takes this as an opportunity to beat Superman. He does not know what's in store for him. Then, do you have any more comments on the Lex Express?
Nope.
Absolutely.
We'll come back to that.
I'm sure we will. Lois, in an attempt to coax Superman out of Clark, flings herself into Running Rapids, which leads to a wonderful sequence of Clark figuring out how to rescue Lois without revealing his true identity, kind of similar to the bullet catching in the first movie.
Yeah.
With Lois feeling dumb for letting herself think Clark could be Superman before it is confirmed back in their honeymoon suite when Clark falls in a fire without a mark. I do love again, so I want to play one more compliment to Christopher Reeve before I kind of get on my soapbox here a little bit. I love again seeing the physical change Reeves does here immediately just in his posture as he turns away from her, like growing a foot.
Yeah.
It's fucking phenomenal. Like anything I'm about to say is not a comment on his actual performance, because objectively that is solid. And so this is where I think it's mentioning, like, I kind of feel like the Clark Superman character should have pushed back on how, like, she kind of was rejecting Clark. Like, here's what I'll say. I do not like how stark the difference of Clark and Superman was in terms of, like, Clark being this absolutely like buffoon
Mm-hmm.
of a character, because then it really did feel like whenever he and Lois finally get together in this movie, that it's like, oh, it's because he's Superman. It's not
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I kind of a little like the theme of like, I don't know, being like, yeah, Clark's a good guy. I don't know,
Right.
like, because they kind of tease that in the first movie where she learns that like he's sending money back to his mom,
Right.
and doing these like kind of good things, and she even says a little bit like, yeah, Clark's a good guy.
Yeah.
I think she like says he's like a catch at some point in the movie,
I think so.
in like the one of the earlier scenes, but I don't know. I feel like I didn't like, I don't know. I wasn't a fan of how cartoony he was as Clark Kent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was a little bit too much, and I mean, I thought it was cool that like she picked up on it. She picked up on Clark being Superman because of like the glasses thing, and then when the kid falls in Niagara Falls, Superman shows up to save the kid, and Clark is gone. She puts that together. So it plays into her being a reporter and being a good reporter.
Yeah.
It was cool to see Clark trying to figure out a way to save her without having to be Superman, but I don't know. It kind of would have been cooler if he had just given in and saved her. Like he tried to like cut the log or whatever, or get the log in the water and shit. I don't know. I was kind of hoping he would have just saved just saved her, because like the hand in the fire thing to me felt a little silly. Like it just felt like it. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that part of it, of like the idea that, because to me it felt like this, like he went through these great efforts and he like to protect, and then he like in this moment was just like, all right, I don't. Yeah. What's the point? Like I trust Lois.
Yeah.
So regardless, this solid dude, not this one, but Clark Kent, Superman, takes Lois to the Fortress of Solitude. Intercut with this is the arrival of General Zod to planet Houston, walking on water and picking up snakes and discovering their arrays of power. They run into some cops. Dwayne, you got to learn to kick ass if you want to be a peacemaker. I fucking love that quote, dude. Which I thought was an interesting choice to not kill the cops, but I think they did this to lead to the scene of Zod, Ursa, and Non terrorizing a small town.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to that in more detail in just a moment. While this is happening, Superman is showing Lois around the Fortress of Solitude, flying to tropic islands to pick her up flowers and dinners. And as Lois and Superman share dinner, they discuss the difference between living as Clark and Superman. And then eventually Clark decides to give up his powers to be with Lois, because to be with a mortal, you have to live as a mortal, with no explanation as to why you have to live as a mortal.
Yeah. Yeah, that felt very fucking unnecessary.
Yes.
And very just like, we want drama in this movie.
Yeah.
And the stakes have to be really unnecessarily high.
Mm-hmm.
And not make any sense at all. So, you have to lose your powers. Yeah, no, I didn't like that. And then he also just like fucking immediately, without thought or hesitation, just like got in the chamber thing and just removed his powers from himself.
Yeah.
But also like I don't see why they couldn't have come back. They just were like, yeah, this is it. If you do this, you can't ever get him back.
Yeah.
But the Yellow Sun is still here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there wasn't any good explanation as to why you gotta do this, and why is this a permanent change. Not that I need, like, a textbook on it, but, I don't know, that was just kind of dumb. And I don't know, I didn't like how he just so easily was like, yep, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm here for a reason. But, fuck that, I saved the world once, so here we go.
Yeah. We then get... General Zod does not take orders, he gives them. Ursa claims as Non finally gets the hang of his heat vision and takes out an army jeep, as Zod easily thwarts any countermeasure while almost seeming disappointed that this new planet isn't more of an actual challenge, and then telling a 4-star general that he will answer to me when the general reveals that he answers to the president, meaning Zod. The president will answer to Zod, and this is where I just love how it's Terrence Stamp. I love how over the top his acting progressively gets. Just like every line he utters is just completely like quotable. Just like he will answer to me.
Yeah.
It's just fucking awesome. Like I think he is. I would say as Zod is just as good to me, or just as entertaining to me as Gene Hackman as Lex is.
Okay.
Not so much like they're obviously not Three Stooges esque, but like just just how over the top ridiculous his character is. And so while Lois and Clark sleep peacefully, Zod and the gang arrive at the White House when we get the first iconic now kneel before Zod. And the next quote, "You're not the president. Nobody who leads would kneel so quickly," revealing that the actual president, who offers to kneel if it saves lives, which is a great quote, but not before warning that there's one man who will refuse to kneel. And Zod asks, "Who is this imbecile?" Which I think that's what, because that's what entertains me about it. Like it is as self-assured as Lex is, of like, who would be stupid enough to not kneel to fucking me?
Yeah. Okay, side note. Since you brought this up in the first video, the fact that Zod, he voices the Prophet of Truth in Halo 3. There's a fucking point in that game in which he says imbecile, but I don't know, it's just one quote that stuck out to me a lot. He doesn't just say imbecile, it's imbecile.
Yeah.
And like he really hits that point in the word.
And that's what he says. I wonder if they did that in Halo.
They might have.
As a reference to this.
They might have. But I don't know, that line always stuck out to me with Halo, so that's funny that he says that in this too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and just
I can't not see that now, because I keep thinking about like the Prophet of Truth lines in that game, and I can't unsee that that's him now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So then we then cut to a powerless Clark and a powerless Lois pulling into a diner, unless you count the power of intuition and investigative journalism.
Yeah.
But I'm a Republican, so I don't. That line's going to get me in trouble. While Clark and Lois are pulling into the diner, with Clark learning it ain't so easy being mortal, he gets his ass beat by a trucker and bleeds for the first time, which I love that line, as Lois is like picking him up off the ground, and he just is like, oh my god, my blood. Like, oh my, like the realization of like, oh fuck, this is a bad idea. And as he recovers from the licking, the message from the president surrendering to Zod before beckoning for Superman, that's how he says it. The president goes, Superman, to return. In anger, Zod challenges to come forth and kneel before Zod, which is so fucking cool. God, I love General Zod.
No, go ahead.
Like, just, I think this performance, and, I guess because we don't want to talk about future movies, but I will also give the shout out to who's it?
I don't know that actor's
name. My god, why am I do. We'll talk about it. That's a sign that we just don't need to talk. But Terrence Stamp, let's give him his flowers while he's here. Yeah. Just I love this performance so much. This is, and I think largely this is why I do kind of prefer Superman 2 to the first one. Just because of him, Lex, and like some of the Superman moments, I think this one's just consistently more entertaining. We'll get more into that as we kind of get through the movie. After seeing this, Clark does venture back to the Fortress of Solitude, begging for his powers back in order to save the planet. When Clark feels defeated by his lack of response, he finds the glowing crystal that first beckoned to him when he was 18, that I think was Lex who had dropped on the ground.
I thought it was Lois.
Lois?
Yeah.
Somebody. It was knocked on the ground. Somebody with an L name, probably. We then cut back to Ursa congratulating Zod that he is the master of the US of A, as she says it, which does not seem to satisfy Zod. And then all of a sudden, Lex baby comes waltzing into the Oval Office. I love the waving of the white flag, offering to help Zod find Jor-El's son in exchange to control over Australia. And god damn, this feels like Elon Musk walking into the White House. That's I just like reading this. I'm like, oh, this is happening.
This is happening right now. Well, they broke up, at least last week. So,
Well, hold on.
yeah.
And so Lex, for some reason, wants to control over Australia. Then we cut back to the Daily Planet with Perry White and Jamie Olsen pacing back and forth as Lois smokes indoors. What a time to be alive when you can smoke indoors. Do you remember?
I remember being in a restaurant with people smoking inside.
Yeah.
Crazy.
There's like,
Fucking
I don't
crazy.
smoke cigarettes and I barely drink coffee, but if I see somebody in a movie inside drinking a coffee and smoking a cigarette, I'm like, that looks so satisfying.
I don't want to smoke a cigarette, but I'll drink the shit out of some coffee.
I don't want to do either, but the visual of it, I'm like, that looks
visual,
relaxing.
yeah, that's fair.
So without warning, Zod arrives with Non knocking out Perry White by just lifting him up into the ceiling, which I thought was so
Do a
fucking
drop
funny.
ceiling.
Yeah, just like,
Nonetheless.
boom, which and that made me cackle. And as Superman is not to be found, Lex lets Zod know that they just need to hold on to Lois before Superman comes calling, with only Lois aware of the reality of the situation, or so we think. When all of a sudden we get the as the music swells, like it has so often before, we get the return of Superman, and in my fucking favorite exchanges of lines in this movie is, General, would you care to step outside?
Yeah.
As Clark is just fucking boom, and come to me, son of Jor-El, and kneel before Zod. Just is all so fucking hyped.
It's so good.
It's so fucking cool, dude. And we get the first we get Superman versus the silent giant Non, with the latter Non chasing Superman around Metropolis before Ursa intervenes, allowing Non to get the first hit before accidentally hitting him with the flagpole. Ursa hits Non with the flagpole. This is why you don't use pronouns when you're writing about multiple people. As Ursa hits Non with the flagpole, this Superman is nothing of the kind. Zod remarks that Superman's weakness is the fact that he cares about these Earth people. As he fires his laser eyes at the people down below, Superman managed to reflect the heat vision back towards Zod and put out the fire. But Non returns to action as he Mario stomps Superman's ass into the ground. And then Superman returns to send the big Galoo through a fucking skyscraper. After some back and forth with Eartha and Zod, Superman gets thrown into a pack of Marble Reds. Do you remember when we used to be a country? Anyways, Non and Eartha throws a bus of people at Superman, which takes him out for a moment. And we get the first ever version of the "you want to go through one of us, you got to go through all of us" scene, as all of the people of Metropolis form a mob, but again are held back literally by Ursa, Zod, and Non, all three blowing air for like 5 minutes straight before Superman wakes up and flies away. What the fuck did you think of this fight, Wyatt?
It's pretty good. I don't know. It's all over the place, man.
I loved it for like the storytelling of it alone, of like Superman working double time to like try to save people, prevent obviously this being kind of the first superpowered being versus superpowered being fight in movies
It's a little
of this
clunky,
kind. Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting because it kind of reminds me of like when we started watching the early Godzilla movies and how like some of those were a bit clunky and a bit like they didn't know how to film like the fight scenes or like how to like just move in the suits and shit. So it's interesting to see the change and the progress in these films and how they're choreographed and shot and stuff. So that's cool, but interesting that like Zod and them, they don't just outright kill people
Yeah.
as much as you might expect. Like, especially when Zod picks up on the fact that Superman does have empathy for humans and stuff, and like wants to save them.
Mm-hmm.
You would think like he might just be way more aggressive.
So I think what Zod craves is subjugation and conquering, and so I think he doesn't see the value in killing these people.
Yeah.
And I think because he specifically says he wants Superman to kneel, I think he is trying to use them as like a kind of a like a human shield, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, and I do love. I actually want to say. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm cutting you off here, but something I want to give a shout is the constant like feeling of like Zod kind of disappointed by how easy conquering Earth was and being like complacent. Which I talk about how overzealous or like over the top his dialogue is. There is a very much a subtlety that he's playing everything with that I think is just really interesting, and like that makes him, to me, that's what I think I kind of prefer Zod to Lex in this movie, because there's more of a compelling there's something more compelling to me as a character, not just in terms of the entertainment side of it, if that makes sense. But then that's the end of the fight, and I do love what I really found impressive about that fight, one last thing, is just how rudimentary it is, and how it's like if you go back and watch pro wrestling from like the 70s and 60s, you're like everything's so slow and like not to what you're used to now, but somehow I still found myself like incredibly engaged with all of it. And I think because the character of it was so strong, like literally from the jump of like, you care to step outside, General. I love that. Like that plays into the Christopher Reeves being just absolutely charming.
It's charming, and then it's just that classic like Superman is like a Boy Scout. Like, he's just that ideal of like just good.
Just the implied strength.
Implied strength. He's polite, and he's about to whoop some ass.
But he's a gentleman.
He's so gentlemanly about it. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and that it goes back to the like. Yeah, the gentle giant feeling that he really that Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve is the fucking man, and I will not accept anything else.
He's fucking awesome. He's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and like just a quick side note, I think that too kind of speaks to like when you think about superheroes and characters and stuff. Like Superman is such like the classic like golden age ideal of what superheroes started out as and what they were and what they could be, and it's just so interesting to see that is still such a prominent, like, people just love that. They love that character, and it's still to this day such a prominent figurehead of superheroes, or he's still such a prominent figurehead of superheroes and stuff, when there's so many different types of characters and different depths of characters and stuff nowadays. It's
and I think it's because at Superman's heart there is just this relentless optimism, and so like, as like over the time, like kind of, I think when we were growing up there was definitely an era where like people preferred Batman or whatever, because they're like, Batman's more realistic, which no, but and certainly I think both of us kind of for most of our lives fell into the Batman superiority. And I think I don't know about you, but like I don't necessarily outright prefer Superman to Batman now, but like I do find myself, the older I get, gravitating back towards Superman and the like relentless optimism, and like there's just something endearing about that. As a character, the truth, justice, and American way.
I think like just to go off on that tangent, I think for a second, I think I personally still prefer Batman, just because I have a super soft spot for like anti-heroes and that kind of shit. But like you said, like the older I get, the more I don't know if it's the more that I appreciate that, or the more that I remember how much I enjoyed that. Relentless optimism of Superman, just how like it's bright and it's happy and like it's cool. It's nice to feel that way. And it's like you said, like truth, justice, and the American way, and like the fact that's supposed to mean something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's. I think it is kind of like a rediscovery of like enjoying that and seeing it for more than just a dude in a blue costume flying around.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so with that, as the getting back to the plot here, Lex leads Zod and crew with a kidnapped Lois to the Fortress of Solitude, where Superman halts Non's initial charge by throwing his symbol, which was not a power I was aware of. And this leads to a bizarre fight of disappearing, reappearing, and holograms until Zod gets the upper hand. Um, Lex snitches on Superman, who was attempting to convince Zod, into the chamber. And turns out Superman knew what the fuck he was doing, though, having turned the fortress into the chamber and took the powers away from Zod and his cronies, pulling a switcheroo, kind of switcheroo, and then like a double crossing on Lex.
Yeah.
Switcheroo double cross is what we'll call this one. Lois then kills Ursa in cold blood because she like shoves her down like a fucking cavern, which Superman, I guess, does not give a fuck about. Lex tries to weasel his way into the good side as Superman drops Lois off as she promises not to tell anybody, and I think he drops Lex back off at prison. I'm assuming. So. I don't think they show it.
I don't honestly remember.
So you cut to the next day at the Daily Planet. Lois confiding in Clark the pain she feels. So I guess before we get to that part of it, because that's the thing we're probably going to talk about quite a bit about. What did you think about the final fight in the Fortress of Solitude?
Honestly, this one I didn't really. I don't know. I didn't enjoy it all that much.
I hated it. I don't know if I hated it, but I was like, "What the fuck are we doing?"
Yeah, like I didn't hate it, but yeah, I very much was like, "What the fuck is happening? Why are you teleporting?"
Yeah.
Are you teleporting or are these holograms? Like, I don't know. It was just odd, and then they did just kind of fall into a chasm.
Yeah.
I mean, Zod got, if I remember right, he got knocked against a wall and then just fell in the chasm.
Yeah.
Non just fell in the chasm.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of anticlimactic, but also just kind of like weird.
Yeah.
Maybe if there wasn't all the holograms and shit, it wouldn't have been quite as weird. I did think the switcheroo was pretty. The double switcheroo was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I liked that. It just, it kind of felt anticlimactic, and like the hologram thing and like the symbol thing, I think goes back to what I was saying with like the last movie of like how nebulous they seem to like play with Superman's powers.
Yeah.
Of like, he can just do this.
Yeah.
Why not? And I think that just goes to show like, I think they just didn't care about that type of thing that like as much as we would care about it nowadays.
Right.
Because they weren't as big of nerds. But anyway, so we do cut to the next day of Lois at the Daily Planet confiding in Clark. The pain she feels not being able to be together, which I don't really get why they can't be together, but we'll roll with it. With finally Clark tells Lois he loves her before giving her a kiss and erasing her memory of him as Superman. We can question the logic of it, but this scene as they present it is just a really heartbreaking scene to me, ending with just like a bit of sweetness as Lois. So this is where Lois tells Clark that he's a good guy as he's leaving the office. What did you think about this scene?
I mean, I think like you said, objectively, like, it is a heartbreaking, touching scene. Because I mean, the acting is great and the chemistry that they have is great, and they do very well together on screen. But yeah, I didn't quite understand why they couldn't be together, other than just like, I mean, the old cliche of like, oh, if they know my identity, they'll use you to get to me or whatever.
Yeah.
That old chestnut shit. But
they didn't even say that.
They didn't even say that.
Yeah.
Which made me kind of like wonder, did I miss something in the dialogue while I was watching this? And then I don't know if that, like, he kissed her and she just kind of lost her memory. Like, is that just another made up power that they gave him for the movie, or like what the fuck happened with that? Where did that come from? So I think on one hand this is a really touching and well acted scene, but then they do goofy shit like that, and it just takes away from it for me.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think the heartbreaking aspects of the scene, they overpower the goofiness.
Right. To me, it is another turn of the like. I love the idea of the scene, and I love the implication. It just is like the execution is just kind of like, I don't like, again, how nebulous they kind of play with the powers and stuff like that. So with that, the movie does end with Superman returning to the diner and beating the trucker's, his name is Rocky, the trucker's ass.
Really?
It is. Followed by him repairing the roof of the White House and flying off into the horizon as the music once again takes over and John Williams writes another Star Wars theme for another movie. Genuinely, I really like this theme. The Indiana Jones theme and the Star Wars theme are like, if you played them on top of each other, they would all sound exactly the same. But
they're so good.
Yes. So with that, I do want to talk about really quickly before we get into our final thoughts, kind of some of what was Donner's and what wasn't. So what Richard Donner shot was he shot the various shots of Krypton villains on trial, where Brando had been removed, so like the beginning court scene.
Okay.
The scenes from Superman during the opening credits, of course. Lex Luthor and Otis during laundry in prison. The 3 supervillains land on the moon and then kill the astronaut. Luthor escaping prison in the hot air balloon and then at the Fortress of Solitude. The Kryptonian recordings, like Laura, was recorded by Richard Lester. The 3 supervillains attacking the White House and forcing the president to kneel before Zod. The shots of the American flag falling, that was shot by Richard Lester. A powerless Clark getting beat up by Rocky, a truck driver on a roadside diner. Donner appears as an extra in the scene. So Lex Luthor visiting the supervillain in the White House, except for the first 2 shots of the sequence that was shot by Lester without Hackman. So like pretty much him like Lex baby coming in. He didn't say it like that. And then let's see, the villains bursting into the Daily Planet and the chase after Superman. Some of the close-ups are Lester's footage. The villains return to the planet and decide to go to Superman's fortress. Some of the close-ups are Lester's footage. The second part of the finale at the Fortress of Solitude, beginning with Luthor's belated arrival. Again, close-ups are going to be Lester's footage. Superman returning Lois home, and Lynn Clark returning to the diner to get his revenge on Rocky. So that's all what Richard Donner shot. There is some criticism. So, like, critics of Richard Lester's Superman 2, including Donner, have stated that Lester's penchant for comedy undermined the integrity of the film, especially when compared to Donner's Superman, kind of meaning that they like the cartooniness of the villain, of the comedy, some of the comedy, like they thought took away from the actual dramatic. So one of the examples is the villains attacking the citizens of Metropolis using super breath, several sight gags, including like the wind blowing off of a man's toupee, the ice cream being blown off of a cone into someone's face, and a man being blown over in a telephone booth and taking the whole time. And talking the whole time. A man with an umbrella being spun around as if he was dancing. And then the man on roller skates being uncontrollably backwards across the pavement. All of those, like, that was all Richard Lester. Like, and like that scene was meant to be more presented in like a terrifying way of like. So I think if it was Donner, and again, I've actually never watched the Donner cut. If it was Donner, that would have been presented in a more menacing manner.
Yeah.
And so you probably would have gotten more of what you were asking about, of like why he didn't kill any humans and stuff like that.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
And another a quote I found was let's see. one of the producers responded to critics saying, "Just for the record, Gene Hackman never shot a foot of film with Lester, and it was all written by me." Meaning that anything funny that you liked about Lex's performance was part of the Donner cut and was not of Richard Lester's doing. So, so yeah, that's just kind of a what really changed. In fact, I think there was actually an argument that Richard Lester might not have for a while directed, like, it was, how I say it was debated if he had directed enough of it to actually get directing credit. So he finally did when by the time the movie was coming out, but it was initially a conversation of like with the Directors Guild of America being like like you don't like, because I guess he only really shot like 40% or so of the movie. Because that's how far into production they were when like Donner got let go. So with that, yeah, kind of really cool stuff this is one of those movies where like I feel like the behind the scenes stuff is just as interesting as the movie itself. But we'll get to kind of start wrapping this up. What did you think about Superman 2, and do you prefer it over Superman 1?
So I really like this movie. Again, kind of to echo my thoughts from the first Superman movie. I liked it more than I thought I would. I liked it. I don't remember. I remember less of this movie than I did of the first one.
Yeah.
Which wasn't much at all. But no, I really enjoy these movies. Again, this is a movie that I would watch again, and I kind of want to already. I think there's a lot of great performances in it. There's a lot of great acting. Or that's kind of the same fucking thing. There's a lot of great performances in it. It was cool to see Zod kind of teased in the first one and then brought into this one. And they didn't just go right for Zod in the first movie. They kind of laid that nest egg, which was cool. But I don't think I like it. I don't think I like it as much as the first one.
Yeah.
I don't really quite know why. I think there's just something that I enjoyed more about the first one, and I haven't quite figured that out yet. Because I really like Zod, but I don't really care much for his little compatriots that he has.
Oh, Ursa and Non.
Yeah, Ursa and Non. I couldn't remember her name. I don't know why. I didn't really enjoy them that much. But Zod was great. He had some great lines himself. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe if it was just Zod, I would have liked it more.
Yeah,
but maybe I just like the first one more.
I think the first one has. So I guess if I'm going to compare it, the first one is kind of like a Rocky to Rocky 2 situation, where like there's just something that's a little bit more earnest about the first one. Like there's something more that's just a little bit sweeter about the first Rocky that makes it like, because it's almost the same film, but there's just like a vulnerability to the first Rocky, and there's a vulnerability to the first Superman that I think kind of make them more stick to the like there's more meat on that bone than this one. I think this one has more entertaining moments, and I think it moves at a quicker pace.
It does,
but I think there is there's quite a bit more actually that you just kind of have to like bear with on it. Of like, you just kind of have to accept that Superman takes out Non with his symbol. Whereas like Brandon, you have to accept that Superman can turn back time in the first one. But again, that one at least has the emotional weight behind it of like the imagery and the implication.
I do think that like both of these movies, the first, I would say, half or first 2/3 of each movie they're stronger to me than like the ends of both of them. I think they kind of fall flat with the first one and the second one. In the end, the conclusions of the movies.
Which, that's what I find funny, of like this very much sets up the formula of the comic book movie, and it seems like the formula of a comic book movie is the third act always being the weakest part of it. I think I agree of like, to me, the highlight, like the climax of this movie is that fight in Metropolis. It's the best that this movie gets. But overall, I still love it. I
do too.
fucking love this. I will always love the General, you care to step outside?
Yeah.
Such a great line, such a great delivery, super iconic, and I'm fucking glad I watched it. I'm definitely gonna at some point watch the Richard Donner cut,
I would like
just to see what the
just to
differences
compare.
are. Yeah. So, I don't. I'm not making any promises on a video, but who knows?
Probably not.
We'll see. We might, watch it separately and go, actually, you know what?
Yeah.
But with that, what I can guarantee you is the next one we are going to watch on the docket is Superman 3 with Richard Pryor. And
So many Richards.
yes, this is the third Richard in the series, Richard Pryor. Which this is actually, of the Christopher Reeve series, the only one I have not seen.
Okay.
And I think that means that this will be the only Superman movie, I guess outside of the James Gunn one, I have not seen yet at all. Have you?
I have not. I
Okay.
haven't seen this one or The Quest for Peace.
I have seen Quest for Peace. I watched it as a kid. I guess spoiler, I liked it as a kid.
Okay.
We'll see if that stands up. But with that, you'll have to click like and subscribe to follow along as we go through every Superman movie theatrically released and give our thoughts. Until then, we got to get back to nerding out about the Man of Steel.
Hell yeah.